as your business grows, you're making more sales, you've got more customers, you've got more work to do. So it's inevitable that you will get to the point where you need to take on some extra help and employ your first team member. So it's a really, really exciting time to get to this stage, but it can also be a little bit daunting too, because all of a sudden you are going to be responsible for making sure that somebody can pay their bills and put food on their table every month. And on top of that, you still need to make sure that you are making enough money to pay your own bills too. Now, there are quite a lot of hidden costs to employing somebody in the UK, and the cost of an employee extends far beyond just their salary. So I'm a former finance director and I have done literally thousands of payrolls in my time. So I'm going to share that knowledge with you today, and we are going to cover off everything from their salary costs to national insurance, pension contributions, sick pay, holiday pay, and also parental leave too. So if you want to be notified when similar content just like this gets released, then make sure you hit that subscribe button, and if you could hit the like button too, that would just really help to push this video to other small businesses in the UK too. So let's get started with the basic, and that's normally the salary. Now, the salary should not be based off what you can afford in your business. It needs to be based off what is happening in the marketplace and what person you need. So it's tempting to go for somebody really young or really cheap, but this actually will probably have a detrimental impact on your business in the long term. So get on Indeed.com, that's one of the biggest employment websites in the UK, and check out similar roles to yours in similar business sizes, because this is who you're competing with. So you need to make sure that your salary or the package that you're offering is comparable to your competitors. So 0 hours contracts are still allowed in the UK, and they're perfectly legal, and for some people 0 hour contracts are a great way of adding flexibility into both the employee and the employer's life. But there are a lot of people that just simply would not apply for a job on 0 hours. So if you do go for a 0 hours contract, you must accept that you're probably wiping out about 75% of the marketplace. So national minimum wage does vary depending on age, but in the UK from April 2024 it will be increasing to £11.44 per hour for anybody over the age of 21. So if you're going to take somebody on full-time hours, say a 35-hour week, then this actually equates to around about a £21,000 annual salary. So that would be the legal minimum that you could pay somebody for full-time hours. And to give you some perspective on that, the average salary in the UK is around about £35,000 at the minute. So the legal minimum that you can pay somebody is 21,000 and the average is 35. But really you need to be setting your salary based on other similar jobs that are currently advertised in the marketplace. So the next thing that you need to account for when taking on an employee is the cost of holiday. Now, everybody is entitled to holiday pay, whether they're on a 0 hours contract or whether they are on full-time hours. Now, if you're offering somebody a salary, then their holiday pay will be included in their annual salary. So you just continue to pay them the same amount every month, regardless of whether they're on holiday or not. But if you're paying somebody based on the hours that they're working, then their holiday pay will be on top of this. So you need to add this on to your costs. And there are various ways of working out holiday pay. Do refer to the HMRC website, or if you're using a bookkeeper or accountant to do your payroll, then they'll be able to do these calculations for you. But generally their holiday pay is based on their average earnings over the last 52 weeks. Okay, so the next cost that you need to be thinking about planning for is employers' national insurance. So this is actually a bonkers tax, because this means that when you take on an employee, you have extra tax to pay. So not only does the employee pay PAYE and employees' national insurance, you have to pay employers' national insurance too, and that is at 13.8% of their earnings. Now, this does only kick in when their monthly earnings goes over £758. So to put that in perspective for you, you can see the numbers on the screen at the moment is the employer's national insurance cost if you took somebody on national minimum wage or on the current average monthly salary of around 35,000. Now, small businesses are actually entitled to some tax relief here in the form of what's called the employment allowance. The employment allowance essentially means that as an employer, you don't have to pay the first £5,000 worth of employer's national insurance. So that means that somebody earning £45,000 roughly, their total employer's national insurance contributions would be around £5,000, and you wouldn't have to pay any of this. So you could take somebody on up to an annual salary of £45,000 without having to pay employer's national insurance. You can also decide to split this over multiple employees, so it doesn't matter if you've got one employee employee at 45,000 or 5 employees at a much lower salary. You get that £5,000 annual allowance before you have to pay employers NI. So for most small businesses taking on their first employee, you don't need to worry about employers' national insurance, but you do need to think about the impact if you're taking on more employees. So the next cost that you need to allow for before you take on an employee is their pension costs. Now, auto enrolment was introduced in the UK back in 2012, and that made it a legal requirement for all employers to offer a workplace pension scheme. And any employees that are aged 22 or over and earn over £10,000 a year are entitled to be automatically enrolled in a workplace pension. Now, essentially what that means as an employer is that you have to offer a pension scheme to your employees, and you must pay a minimum of 3% into the pension scheme. Now, your employee also has to make a contribution too, and if they don't want to make a contribution, then they can opt out, and therefore there's no cost to you. Now, you will have to pay these pension contributions over to a pension provider. So some of the more well-known ones in the marketplace are Aviva and Scottish Widows, but there is a government scheme called Nest, which is completely free to use as well. So auto enrolment, as I say, has been around since 2012. So all of the payroll systems have got this built into it automatically. So from an administrative perspective, it's very easy to do, but you do need to bear in mind that you should allow for an additional 3% on top of your employee's salary. Okay, so we have so far had a look at salary, national insurance costs, pension contributions, and holiday pay. We're now going to take a quick look at parental leave. When I say parental leave, I am referring to maternity pay, paternity pay, and parental leave and adoption leave, anything that sort of falls into that category. Now, as an employer, you do have to pay this over to your employees if they're entitled to the statutory legal minimum, and pretty much everybody would be. However, you can claim this cost back from HMRC. So you have to pay it but claim it back afterwards. So there's a slight cash flow impact to your business, but there's no cost to your business. And HMRC even allow you to claim an additional 3% back to cover any administration costs that you have for doing this. So if you pay somebody £100 in maternity, you can claim £103 back from HMRC. So it's a good thing to make sure that you're aware of what your employee is entitled to. But as I say, there's no cost to any of these schemes if you're a small employer. So the final cost that you need to allow for is sick pay. Now, it's a very difficult one to say that you need to allow for sick pay because of course you're not planning on your employees being sick, but the reality is that everybody probably will have a couple of sick days throughout the year. Now, in the UK, we have a process of self-certification, which means the first 7 days is up to the employee to say they are sick, and after 7 days they do have to provide a fit note, which was previously known as a doctor's note, to say that they're not well enough to work. The first 3 days that they take as sick is completely unpaid, and then from day 4 onwards they are entitled to statutory minimum sick pay for up to 28 weeks. Now, statutory sick pay is currently £109.40 per week, and this is a cost to the employer. You did used to be able to claim this back from HMRC, but they changed this back in 2015, and now it is the employer's cost. Now, you can decide to pay your employee more if you want to. You can pay company sick pay as well, but I'm just referring to the statutory legal minimum which every employee is entitled to. It can sound quite scary having to pay an employee for 28 weeks if they were sick, but that thankfully is quite a rare scenario, and actually that would only add up to £3,036. So it's not an ideal scenario, but probably the biggest impact for employers is more around managing that sickness and the impact that that has, because at the end of the day you only took on an employee because you needed the help. And what I would say is that if you find yourself in this situation, then it is actually possible within UK employment law to dismiss an employee based off their sickness record, particularly if they have been with the company less than 2 years. But you do need to be really careful around this, particularly if the illness that they have is classed as a disability, then you could fall under discrimination laws. So it's always best to check with a legal advisor before doing any of this. You could also contact ACAS, which is a fantastic free resource for all employers, which will talk you through everything that you have to do as an employer to fulfill all of your employees' legal rights. So taking on an employee is essential to enable your business to grow and achieve your long-term goals. And it doesn't need to be as daunting as it may at first seem. We've covered in this video all of the different costs that you need to plan for, because as you can see, the costs are much greater than just paying their basic salary. And a number one rule is that every single employee should be a profit generating employee after they've worked for you for 6 months. So if you've got an employee that's been with you for 6 months or more and your profit is down, then that is a massive red flag that something isn't working. So you need to address that right away and get that employee generating profit for your business. So if you found this content useful, don't forget to hit the like button to push this to other small businesses in the UK, and subscribe to my channel to get notified when I release other videos just like this too.